So Texas warned all of the United States that a crisis was coming. And the crisis that was coming is about to break every single city, every single county, every single state, and every single person within those states. I'm going to break down what is going on at this time, because this crisis that was unfolding in Texas has now spread to Arizona, California, Oregon, Washington, Colorado, New York, Illinois, even Florida. I'm going to address what's going on in just a moment. All I ask is one thing. It takes 2 seconds. Go ahead, hit that like button if you enjoy these daily updates. And now let's begin. So the crisis that has been unfolding is down at the U.S. southern border. It has impacted Texas, California, Arizona, and New Mexico. Those are the southern border states. However, it's also impacting the northern part of Mexico. It's turning into a massive crisis that now the Mexican president and Mexican government are now asking for the Biden administration to do more to slow down the amount of people attempting to enter into the United States. Now, President Biden has a plan. His plan, well, him and former President Donald Trump, they're going to make their way down to the U.S.-Mexico border. They're going to do that on Thursday. President Biden is going to head to Brownsville, and former President Donald Trump is going to head to Eagle Pass. Now, with that said, there are residents in Brownsville that are not happy. According to this report from Fox News, it says Texas border residents are not happy ahead of Biden's visit. He knows exactly what he's done. President Biden and the Biden administration have made the immigration crisis even worse. The numbers that we are seeing, we have never seen ever in our history. There's so many people that are coming into the United States for many reasons. Some just want to work because the economy where they live is much worse. Others have been trying to enter into the United States for the past handful of years. However, under former President Donald Trump, it was very difficult to enter into the United States. And then we entered into a pandemic where it was very difficult to enter because we didn't want anybody new coming into the U.S. And now, well, the borders are kind of open. The Biden administration is allowing people to just enter through the United States somewhat freely. Well, here's what I can tell you. Right now, the American people are pushing back. They want to see changes. They want to see policy changes. They want additional funding to hire additional border agents to actually detain people, not catch and release them. And according to a recent poll, the majority of voters in the United States support building a wall along the U.S.-Mexico border. What's interesting about this is the polling numbers today are higher than what they once were under former President Donald Trump. I want to show you this. It says the 53% of Americans who now approve of a border wall is a significant increase from the highest level, 44% of support it received during the years Trump was in the White House. That is huge. The fact that we have jumped up 9% over the past handful of years simply because this crisis is now potentially going to bankrupt cities. Cities and states are saying that they cannot afford to keep things how they are currently operating. They can't afford to keep police officers working, not at the wages that they're receiving. They can't afford to keep parks open. Can't afford to keep libraries and schools completely funded. It's turning into a massive crisis. But here's the good news. Mexico's president is willing to help with this border migrant crush, but he wants the U.S. to open talks with Cuba. And not just Cuba, with Venezuela, with Colombia, with other countries as well. If we are seeing people from other countries enter into the United States, he says that we can entice them to keep their residents and their citizens there in their own country, as opposed to pretty much sending them off to the United States and hoping that it will be our problem. Now, here's what I can tell you. Just recently learned that Mexico is actually setting up checkpoints near a border gap. And they're going to do this in order to somewhat deter immigrants from coming into the United States. You can see here in this video, it was done by 60 Minutes. I'm not going to play it, but there's Chinese migrants that are coming into the U.S. through the exact same border gap that we've seen thousands of people enter through. Just in the days that 60 Minutes was down there recording, they recorded for 4 days. They said they saw nearly 600 migrants come through that border gap in that time. 600 in 4 days in one border gap. That's not even the biggest one. That's just the one that many Chinese migrants are using because that's where they're being directed to through a Chinese TikTok app. Again, very interesting. But here's where things get somewhat concerning. And I want to bring this to your attention because it says the immigration crisis may bankrupt cities such as New York, Denver, and Chicago as federal funds fall short of needs. I want to read you a little bit of this because what we are facing right now is a massive issue where city governors or city mayors and state governors are having to decide where they make cuts. Can they make cuts, and where are they going to reallocate that fund to? Are they going to send everything to shelters, food banks, to welcome centers, to schools, right? To additional housing? What do they do? Well, let's read a little bit of this article. This is from Simon Hankinson. He's a senior research fellow at the Heritage Foundation. He says, I think it's at this point politically unsustainable for the Biden administration to maintain this unlimited flow into what's essentially a welfare state network of cities like New York, Denver, and Chicago. Now, another person says, the current level of federal funding provided to state and local governments is a drop in the bucket compared to need. And this is something I've addressed before as well. It says Congress has provided a very small amount of money of $800 million for a FEMA program for the entire country the last fiscal year to assist cities in aiding these newcomers. But here's the thing, okay? Millions of dollars has been spent in order to accommodate these people. In just the state of Texas, just to give you an example, Texas is estimating that they spent about $1.4 billion on illegal immigrants just in fiscal year 2023. But yet Congress has allocated $800 million. That's a huge, huge change. $800 million versus $1.4 billion, that's a $600 million difference in just one state. But Congress is allocating $800 million to the entire country. Okay? Look at this. I want to read you this one right here. It says, but cities say that amount is far from enough. For instance, the $145 million allocated to New York City is less than 10% of what the city spent on migrant services in fiscal year 2023. And the concern is fiscal year 2024 is going to be even bigger. They're going to see even more illegal immigrants come into the United States, and more are going to demand assistance. So $145 million is less than 10% of what the city spent. Well, that means it's at least $1.4 billion. But yet only $800 million has been allocated to FEMA in order to account for all these newcomers coming into the United States. Again, it's a big issue. Let's read the rest of this. It says this is a whole spectrum of housing, of services needed for people who are new to a place, new to a country, new to a city. These are complicated issues to manage, so the city, the state, and the federal government, frankly, were not prepared for it. I don't think anybody was prepared for what's coming, but Texas has been warning the people of the United States to be ready, because those benefits that you are currently receiving, they could go away very soon. Those parks that you normally frequent with your kids and your family, well, you could be locked out of those because those might be used to put tents up to house illegal immigrants. We could also see libraries closed down so those facilities can be used to, again, house immigrants. Schools, we could see those closed down. We could see rec centers, even more so, closed down than they already have. The concern right now is that doing any type of summer school might be out of the question, because in those sanctuary cities, we may be using those schools in order to house migrants who have nowhere else to go. So, at this time, that is what we know. Again, this crisis right now is about to break everybody. Everybody here in the U.S. is going to feel the impacts. Just wait. So that's what we know at this time. As always, as I know more, I promise I'll come back on and share all the latest news and updates. But that is what we know as of today. So again, thank you guys for watching. Consider subscribing, and I'll see you guys on the next one.